School's a pain in the ass, but then again, I really want this major, and yeah, so let's go over today's topic. I was originally going to do a video about humanism first, but that will take some time, and since I'm back in school, I decided to do something that will be short, so today we'll be talking about Marxist Materialism. Now, the reason I chose this topic is because I don't think a lot of people know about materialism in a Marxist sense. When you hear people usually use this word, materialism, it is to describe someone who places high value on an object. Whilst yes, that is one way to use the term, there is also another philosophical way, in a sense, that talks about nature and our surroundings. Now in this video I plan to go over 3 parts, part 1 dealing with history and the idea of materialism, and the second half dealing with how it compares to other ideas such as idealism and determinism, and lastly I'll give my thoughts on it. So, let us begin. Now what is materialism? Materialism in a Marxist sense is the idea that life events are not isolated but based on matter that is surrounding us. Marx even stated that it is not conscious that determines beings, but beings determining the conscious, meaning we are inspired by the beings around us, they influence the way we think and act. It should be noted that those whom deny the idea of governing laws of social development will be forced to see human history through a subjective and moralistic viewpoint. Of course, this implies that morality is relative, thus most people would see history as isolated rather than discerning them as a transition from one social system to another. Prior to Marx and Engels' scientific basis on materialism, life was seen as so-called accidents, meaning that history was unconnected. There was no lawfulness in history, but just different events. So, I would argue that for the longest time, this Aristotle idea was the most accepted viewpoint because it didn't challenge idealistic beliefs and possibly perpetuated this idea of predestination. So the scientific basis of materialism tells us that life is interconnected instead of unrelated. Society changes based on our surroundings and conditions, whether they be political, economic, or social issues. Man changes nature through labor based on how we work within our conditions. So life within itself is nothing more than historical materialism. This idea of materialism was a major proponent for ML and MLM governments, and its ideas were heavily supported. It should be noted that materialism is a major proponent of Marxism. Now, one of the things that materialism rejects or goes at odds with is the idea of idealism. I can't believe I said it like that. Anyway, what is idealism? Well, idealism has 2 different definitions according to Oxford Dictionary. The first, which states that pursuing and forming ideas that are not realistic as opposed to realism, and the philosophical definition is that idealism is any form of thought that the object of knowledge are held to be in some way dependent on the activity of the mind. As you may have already known or guessed, materialism rejects idealism in favor for working with the physical nature of our surroundings. One of the main arguments from idealists is that the mind and matter were completely separate, whilst the materialists say this is not true, saying that the brain that contains our consciousness is made of matter in certain organization due to our evolution. Idealism rejects the idea that matter is a basic form of substance and instead favors more of a metaphysical and/or epistemology outlook on life. One of the biggest factors of idealism is free will, but before we completely cover that, let us go over determinism. Determinism states that the external factors causes the way we act and interact, and will even reject the idea of free will as a whole. In a way, it is as if we are slaves to our environment, and it is similar to materialism, but materialism rejects this way of thinking as well. Why? Because of free will. Whilst the idealists, or some, believe we have it, and the determinists say we don't, Marxist materialism states that man can make his own history, meaning they have free will in that sense, but they cannot form it to the exact ideal. In this form, we don't have total free will, as our material conditions only allow us to go so far, but we can change it through scientific means based on our labor. So materialism rejects most of idealism and some of determinism for a more realistic view of sorts. Now let's go over my thoughts and my own beliefs on it. Materialism is historical and is scientifically based on real life and the matter surrounding us. I understand why people fully reject this, because it hurts their own ideas and beliefs. But to fully reject it is to reject life and history within itself, or at least in my opinion. It's not very logical to reject this, to be honest. Now, what is my personal beliefs? Well, this might sound dumb to you, and I'm fine with that. But I don't fully accept the ideas of materialism, and there goes a lot of people wondering why and probably mad at me and pausing the video. I was like, what the fuck is he on about now? And I know that sounds weird after hearing my previous statement. I still think materialism is valid, don't get me wrong. But personally, I am a monist. Pretty sure I fucked up that pronunciation. Fuck me. But yeah, I still think materialism is valid, but personally I'm a monist. An attributive monist to be exact. What is that, you might ask? The idea that there is one being, that within there are many different substances or things. Of course, attributive is broken into three subcategories such as idealism, materialism, and neutral monism. I fall in the line of neutral, which states that substances is neither idealistic or materialistic but neutral. In my personal religious beliefs, which after this video I'll make sure to not bring my own personal religious beliefs in a very long ass time. I think there is a greater being out there that could have made the universe, and that the materials set before helped evolve and understand our life. That helped us, evolve and understand our life a little better. I know this is a burden of proof, but I personally believe in a greater being. But I will never fully accept the whole idealist terms, and even though I support Marxist Materialism in order to understand history and how to actually change life for the better, I don't fully accept that substance probably came from nothing. Again, this is just my personal belief, and you can critique me on it and try to get to change my mind. I actually encourage you to do so, but that's just my belief. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video, I'll go over humanism through a Marxist perspective. If you liked the video, like it, dislike it if you dislike it. If you have any questions or critiques, feel free to leave them in the comment section below and I will read them. Make sure you hit the bell notification to know when I upload more videos, and make sure you subscribe. And yeah, this is Bakura98 signing off.